I want to play the clip. I'm going to play the clip because for me, when I saw this last night, my blood was boiling as a football fan of Arsenal. Like for me, it just confirmed Arsenal were cheated. At the week, even though they won, they were still robbed. They were still cheated. Take a listen to this, viewers. Let's have a little listen.
Every game among our group, dealing with the same situations in the same way each week. But of course, all situations vary slightly. We accept and understand this. And this is clearly a poor tackle. And I'm pretty confident if a red card had been given by Michael Oliver on the day, it would have been a very straightforward check complete. But he doesn't. He issues a yellow card. I think there's a few differences. The player Kovacic comes into the tackle with the right leg. There's some weight on the left leg as he kind of lunges in. The right heel hits the ground.
You notice how he's already said lunges, which is a big key word for red card, but we'll continue.
And then the contact is a little bit more to the side with a kind of like an upright foot as opposed to a side-on foot that we saw with Gusto. A few small differences, I think, that led the VAR to feel that the on-field decision here of a yellow card wasn't clearly and obviously incorrect, and therefore check completing it, feeling that if it had intervened, it would have been a re-refereeing of that decision by the referee on the field.
So what about the...
What's really interesting about that, first of all, he says, because his foot was more upright than sideways, it doesn't count. But I've seen red cards for both upright and sideways in the past. So again, for me, that's a bit of Billy BS. But it's the next bit that comes up here. The next bit's crazy.
One. I know we're not going to show it, but do you think he was fortunate to stay on for the second yellow card a little bit later on?
I do. I mean, obviously the VAR can't get involved. The second yellows are something that the VAR is not able to get involved in. But yeah, I think he was an extremely fortunate player to stay on the field of play. Of course, the referee, one of our best referees, one of the best referees in the world, Michael Oliver, will no doubt review that. He doesn't want to have a negative impact on the game by overreacting to something, and sometimes play
that there. Doesn't want to have a negative impact on the game by overreacting and sending somebody off. And I heard that and thought to myself, hang on. So he seems nervous there, Howard Webb. He's rambling a little bit for me. He's talking very fast. He didn't want to have a negative impact upon the game by overreacting and sending somebody off who deserved to be sent off. That, for me, again, is referees going into matches and saying, right, if this was Arsenal versus Sheffield United, we'd have sent the Sheffield United player off. Because it's a potential title challenging, top of the table clash, because of the occasion, we're not going to follow the law of the game. That, for me, when I hear that, is proof that they go into these games, they go into these games and they are ready to cheat. They are ready to break the laws. They are ready to break protocol for reasons unbeknown to me, because, yes, they won the game. And yes, I know playing against 10 men can be harder, but Kovacic deserved to go. And the rationale is he didn't want to overreact and impact the game negatively by following the rules. I can't understand this, Sav.
Look, I don't know where to begin. Look, first of all, I hate the rules. I'll be brutally honest. I think the game has gone soft. For me, these are the sort of tackles that back in the day were never a card, never a yellow or red card. But that's by or by. Whether I think it's a red is completely irrelevant here, right? What I would say is this. How can he say what he said and then follow up with, this is one of the best referees in the world, but admits that he should have sent him off and he didn't because of the flow of the game and the occasion of the game? Listen, I think this is the whole thing with VAR and referees and everything, Terry. No one seems to know anymore. And how are we meant to know? There's no consistency. There's no one knows anymore what is a red. No one knows anymore what is a yellow. No one knows what's a handball. We barely know the offside rule. And listen, the thing is, I don't think it's Arsenal being cheated. I think this is happening game after game after game, week after week. Bad decisions. What is given in the 3 o'clock kickoff won't be given in the 5:30 kickoff. How can that be? There has to be consistency across these decisions. Now, whether or not we think they're yellows or reds is not the point. If the refs think they are yellows and reds, then you have to give them all or none of them. Right? And I think the standard of refereeing is the worst it's ever been. I think VAR is a joke. And unfortunately, video clips like that just make Howard Webb look really stupid. So... strange.
I understand, like tackles. I think the first tackle, I believe they should be red cards because they're those kind of tackles where if the studs of the player stick in the ground, that they could be leg breakers. And I think they've always kind of been red cards, those tackles. I understand that there are certain laws and rules within the game that we don't like, but I still want the referees to issue cards when they are meant to. We see so many cynical fouls that should be yellows in the opening 10 minutes not given. We sometimes see 3 or 4 fouls that should be yellows in the opening 15 minutes not given. And then one guy commits a much lesser foul at 25 minutes and then gets booked. And you sit there and think to yourself, how does that make sense?
Shouldn't matter what minute in the game it is, right? It's either
so many pundits. I've heard so many pundits, so many fans over the years go, don't referee the game, referee the occasion. Never. You always referee the game by the letter of the law. You shouldn't, because they always talk about football, sporting integrity, but how can there be sporting integrity if during the clashes between Arsenal and City and Arsenal and Liverpool and Arsenal and Tottenham this season, because you guys are like the 4 teams in the title race, they don't send players off for tackles that everybody else would be sent off for when they're playing against Arsenal? Well, that would mean, say Man United play Arsenal and Casemiro does that. Oh, no, we'll send him off because it isn't as big a game. Yeah. Well, that means Man United don't have Casemiro for 3 matches. But then a City player or a Spurs player or a Liverpool player may not be punished, and therefore they're available for 3 games. You instantly, if you referee occasions and not games, you instantly damage the integrity of football. And that, for me, is where teams are being cheated. They're being cheated because clearly they're like, oh, I can't. Again, this is the irony. This is how you know they live in an echo chamber. You saw Mike Dean the other day turning around to Paul Merson and screaming at him that we can't just stop the game, it's the law. The irony is you sticking to that protocol upset everybody. If you'd have broken that protocol and said, actually, we're going to give the goal, we're going to reward it, might have looked a bit messy, most of football, probably barring some Spurs fans, would have gone, but that was the right thing to do. Nobody cares. In a court of law, in politics, yes, we want our government and we want our people in law to follow the rules because things can go wrong. But generally in life, nobody's against a process being broken if breaking that process isn't going to lead to harming people. Does that make sense? The way they're talking about it is like, if we do this, thousands of people might starve. It's weird to me. It's a football law that, again, you don't want to break it, but on occasions, nobody is going to complain if that rule, if that law is broken because of a human error prior. The same with this. No one is going to complain about Kovacic being sent off. No one's going to say, yes, some people might say ruin the game. But so what? That should never be in the full mindset of a referee. I need to make this game good for the TV viewers. That should never be in their mind's eye.
No,
it should never be in their consciousness at all.
But Terry, the word for me more than any is consistency. If a foul is a foul in the first minute, then a foul is a foul in the last minute, and every minute in between. You see this a lot from footballers, right? Footballers will make 2 bad tackles and they'll do this. Oh, it's only my second one, right? That doesn't mean you get 2 opportunities to break someone's leg. This isn't a lottery. This isn't how many can I get away with? If you are going to give a yellow card for a foul in the first minute, it has to be the same in the 25th minute and the 30th minute. I get it. Some of the bigger occasions, it's going to be a little bit helter-skelter. Cool, I get it. But that's when the referees have to go in, chat to the teams beforehand and say, listen, all right, we know the occasion. We know how much this means. Keep it calm. I don't want to be sending off people in the first 5-10 minutes, but I will. Because a foul is a foul, regardless of what time, which team, the opposition, relegation battle, top 4 battle, title battle, mid-table nothing battle, Sunday league battle. Right. So for me, I think they've got to have a real, overhaul on what the rules are. And again, as I said, I've said this for years. We've made football a very, very complicated game. And it never was, Terry. It was never a complicated game. Now it's just so many rules. And every time there's for example, the Curtis Jones red card, the debate after that, right? Because none of us know what is the exact rule. Forget whether you're Spurs, forget whether you're Liverpool, forget if you're Arsenal, Man United, whatever. People are watching that going, well, there was no intent. Other people go, it doesn't matter if you've got intent. It was a high foot. Well, it doesn't matter if this, doesn't matter if that.
Well, intent's never been in the law, and this is the thing for me. Why I want the audio available at all times. They need to let referee by the letter of the law and not the occasion, because intents never existed. People always go, last man's never been a law. The fact that there's so many Spanish customs that fans have created that don't actually, that ironically don't even exist. Does that make sense? It's just become kind of like a weird like process that people have gone through. And this used to exist in mild industry. When I worked in branches of banks, there was things that staff did that weren't even, they were like, oh yeah, I can't, somebody would come in and go, I want to, weird stuff. When I first joined, I wanted to deposit some money into my wife's account. Oh, I can't let you do that. Why? It's against the law. It wasn't, but it was because they weren't trained properly, and it became a Spanish custom, and they were telling people that's money laundering. I remember I started and I heard experienced people say it, so I just assumed that was true as well. And then they started educating people properly, and it was like, wow, we've been telling people they've been breaking the law where they haven't. It's ridiculous. And the football laws are like that. People say stuff that just doesn't exist, and the clear and obvious thing is the other one. Well, what does that mean? What's the threshold on clear and obvious? Because unless we hear communication, we don't know. He said there, because the foot was upright and not like this, that made it not a clear and obvious error. Well, if you're saying if we're saying the foot's upright, it shouldn't be a red card, that's fine. But that means any other tackle like that ever where the foot's up, we should never see a red card. But as soon as we do, then it begs the question of, well, was it a clear and obvious error then? Because it don't make, if one's a yellow and one's a red, and now you're saying, and now you're reversing that, well, that is an obvious error, because a yellow and a red card are different types of fouls. There is a clear distinction between the two of them.
Can we go back to what it was? Can we go back to what it was? Like, honestly, I do feel it's soft now. I do feel that now the problem is every single tackle people want a yellow. Yeah. Every single foul, everyone wants a card. Sometimes it can be, I'm not talking about this game, but sometimes a foul can happen, get up, play on current. Everyone's like, card. Every time a ball hits a hand, VAR. It never used to be like this. It never used to be like this. And it's making it worse from the fans in the stand to the players on the pitch, everyone. And this is why I don't like VAR. When people say, oh, it's not the technology, it's the people running it. If the option wasn't there for VAR, no one would be able to say VAR. The refs either get it right or get it wrong, and you play on. I miss those days. I'll be brutally honest, Terry. I miss them.
I hear you. I hear where you're coming from. Like, for me, there's elements of VAR I like. I want to get it quicker. Goal line technology. I like the idea of offsides being checked when they do it properly. I prefer the fully automated situation. I don't even mind them checking decisions with VAR. I think violent conduct should be there. Someone throws out a punch or a slap or elbow someone in the mouth.
Sure.
And the referee's missed it. Sure. I think for me, the hugely subjective ones now, unless they're, the reason I don't believe they want us to hear the audio is because then we can really hold them to account. Howard Webb can sit in a studio 4 days later and go, right, spend 4 days going, right, let's look at the last 2 or 3 red cards. Oh, yeah, look, it's like spot the difference. Oh, the foot was up, the foot was sideways. There you go, that's our get out. Well, I want to know whether they said that in the audio. I agree. If it's in the audio, they say, yeah, look, the foot's upright. And as we said in the meeting in I don't know, in July, protocol 672, if the foot's upright, we would issue that as a yellow. If they explain it, you go, oh, well, at least they're being consistent. Nobody would moan. The lack of transparency is a madness for me.
Also, Terry, for me, if you are going to have VAR, it was first introduced for a few things. Now we're using it for everything. And I think that's what is ruining the game, because every decision can't be right in a game, whether you're watching it on VAR or not. Every decision is going to be open to interpretation from depending on the refs. They're not all the same person. Yes, they should all have the same rules. But even with the same rules, you know what rules are like. People are going to read a rule how they want to read a rule, Terry. People are going to interpret it the way they want. Look, I just think that it's worse than ever. If I'm brutally honest, I just think it's got worse than ever. If you're going to use VAR, use it for the obvious things. But we don't need it for every single goal. Like every goal, they're checking for an offside. They're checking for a handball. They're checking was the ball out of play. Like, it doesn't need to be that linear. It doesn't need to be that linear. You know, it can be open to interpretation. Look, it's just my opinion. I don't like VAR. I think it's ruined football.
I hear you on that.